we all imagine a certain future for mobility. We see a very fast-growing market. Today, it's estimated at approximately $300 billion market, mobility as a service, and is estimated to be $1.5 trillion market in 10 years approximately. And we all imagine a market where we are shifting from car ownership into a model where we have a variety of services all available for us, from taxis to public transportation to bike sharing, car sharing, and micromobility, many different transportation modes available in an easy way that will help us to move from point A to point B. And while doing that, it will also reduce traffic, it will reduce accidents, it will reduce pollution for the entire ecosystem, and we will have a much better future with the mobility as a service paradigm. But actually, that's not what really happens in today's world. What we see in today's world is that into this space, we see the emergence of big ride-hailing companies trying to grasp as much as they can and to be the only or almost only mobility as a service provider. So if we look at the US, we have Uber and Lyft. We have a duopoly there right now. We don't have variety of services. And if you want to have mobility as a service, you can either choose Uber and Lyft. If we look at Russia, we have Yandex. If we look at China, there's Didi. And in Southeast Asia, we have Grab and Ola. And the situation is pretty much the same all over the world. We have giants of ride-hailing companies who grew very, very strongly over the last few years to grasp a very centric position in the mobility as a service market. And if we look what it does to the ecosystem, we see, not very surprisingly, that this ecosystem is not really efficient. We don't gain mobility efficiency. We don't have less traffic. We don't have less accidents, and we don't have less pollution. On the contrary, there are a lot of studies who support that the cause of the traffic or the growth of traffic in the last few years is as a result of the entrance of these big ride-hailing companies. In New York, in Manhattan, where originally we had 17,000 yellow cabs, and now we have 100,000 Uber and Lyft cars. If it's in San Francisco, in London, in many other places in the world, we have a worse situation of mobility. And it's not really surprising, because when you have a concentrated market, by definition, you cannot gain efficiency. And that's what we're trying to solve with Here Mobility. Here Mobility mission is to completely change this market dynamic. And we are here to create a competitive mobility market in order to achieve urban mobility efficiency. And I really want to relate to what Pia talked about in her slides a few minutes ago, where the question was, can the market become an efficient market by itself? Can it be connected by itself? Or there need to be a connector in the market? And my answer is, we need to have a connector. And we Here Mobility created this connector as a marketplace. So we have a hyper-fragmented market. If we put aside the big ride-hailing companies, the rest of the market is hyper-fragmented. Taxi companies, public transportation, bike sharing, car rental companies, micromobility, private hire. We have many different service providers which cannot really compete in the market, and it's hyper-fragmented in many different locales and with many different services. And on the other side, we have a big demand of this kind of services, not only by the end consumer, but also by businesses that need mobility or transportation for their customers. We're talking about airlines, we're talking about retailers, hotels, healthcare, all share the same need. And it's not surprising that the need to move from point A to point B is very, very generic and very common throughout cross verticals. And there is no connector in this space. So we created mobility marketplace, which eventually you can think about it like the Google for mobility. We are open and neutral and global for every mobility service provider. We're only working with companies. But if there is a company who sells motion, it can sell this motion through this marketplace at a global scale. So we connect taxis, private hire, public transportation, micromobility, all different services available in the marketplace. And on the other hand, we connect Eurowings and few others who joined the marketplace, dozens of hotels, shared working space, and many other verticals who already signed with us. We already have more than 600 partners, supply and demand, that signed with us. And we are acting as a connector. We believe that the consumer should have freedom of choice to have the variety of services. And by doing that, we can then create efficiency in the market. In order to connect supply and demand, we have a variety of ways to connect. On the supply side, on the fleets, we either connect directly to their dispatch system using an API, or we provide our own dispatch system that help them manage their fleet. So taxis will not managed by radio or some old system, but we have a modern mobility dispatch system, which also create efficiency, which means that we can save them a lot of driven kilometers while they're using our dispatch system. As of today, and we only got started, we already save more than 1,000 driven kilometers a day. And we're expected to grow 300 times along the year. So we expect to finish 2019 with saved driven kilometers, which means driven kilometers that we save to the world, approximately 300,000 driven kilometers a day. That's what we expect to have by the end of the year. Just to give a perspective, that's the distance between the Earth and the Moon every day. And we only got started. On the other side, on the demand side, we have a variety of ways to connect to the marketplace. We are neutral there. So we have an API, a very generic API, or an SDK to connect applications that want to be connected, concierge solution for hotel lobbies or for medical centers or for operators, a web widget like we did with Eurowings. We also implemented the same web widget at the Mardi Gras event. It's a nice example, the Mardi Gras. It's a big carnival in New Orleans once a year. And during this event, there are almost 1 million people coming from all over the world to New Orleans. And before we joined there, or before we entered there, there were only Uber and Lyft available for the mass of the people. And we connected the local taxi companies and local mobility service provider to be available. And we also integrated it within the website. They wanted, the Mardi Gras organizers wanted to integrate it within the website. And if you will open the website of the Mardi Gras and you will search for a parade there, you will see a nice button of book your ride there. And this button connect to the availability of the marketplace, of the e-mobility marketplace, the relevant one in New Orleans. Beside the web widget, we also have a kiosk which we place in lobbies of hotels, in shared working space, train station, and high density people places. We already at the marketplace already got a very large coverage. Here you see the slide. We have more than 1.5 million vehicles already joined the marketplace, the e-mobility marketplace. Just to give a perspective, and it happened within a year. Lyft currently has 1.4 million vehicles on their platform. Uber has 3 million vehicles on their platform, but for Uber, it took 10 years to get this kind of inventory, and we got it within a year. And we are here to help the market to gain access to the demand, to connect an unconnected market, and to bring efficiency. Eventually, we are here to create a better mobility ecosystem and a better mobility future. I'm a big believer of our ability to bring efficiency using data. And the way we measure efficiency, as I've mentioned, is how many driven kilometers can we save to the world. As I said, currently we're standing on 1,000 driven kilometers per day, and we're estimated to raise it to 300,000 driven kilometers a day by the end of this year. By doing that, we will be able to provide a better mobility future and to connect the whole mobility ecosystem. Thank you.